You're probably staring at a handful of soldering stations online, wondering which one actually earns its price tag and which will leave you buying a cheap tool that burns out before you finish that first project. You don't want to waste money on a unit that looks good on paper but can't hold a steady temperature when you're trying to fix a broken USB-C port or rework a tiny surface mount resistor. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's walk through what makes the Weller 26409 stand out or not so you can decide whether it belongs in your bench. First, think about the kind of work you do. If you're a hobbyist who assembles a few Arduino shields a weekend, or a student building a prototype for a class project, you need a reliable heat source that won't fluctuate wildly. If, on the other hand, you're a professional electronics repair technician handling dozens of board repairs daily, you'll likely need a more robust system with advanced thermal recovery and a larger array of accessories. The Weller station sits somewhere in the middle. It's a dedicated benchtop unit that promises consistent output wattage and a straightforward interface, making it a solid match for serious hobbyists and light to medium repair work. What you'll notice right away is the station's single-handed temperature control knob. It isn't a fancy digital readout, but the dial moves smoothly and the temperature change feels immediate. In real use, that translates to being able to dial down to a low 200°C for delicate components without hunting for a setting, then crank it up to 400°C for larger joints on a power supply connector. I've tried a few different projects soldering a 0402 chip onto a breakout board, then switching to a thicker copper wire for a small power lead. The station kept the tip temperature stable enough that I didn't have to reheat the joint repeatedly, which is a subtle but huge time saver. One practical strength of the Weller 26409 is its output wattage. The unit delivers enough power to heat a standard 1mm tip quickly, but it's not so aggressive that it scorches a tiny surface mount part the second you touch it. In a real-world scenario, that balance helps when you're working with mixed component sizes on the same board. You can start a job with a fine tip on a dense array of resistors, then swap to a broader chisel tip for a connector without having to wait long for the station to settle. That kind of flexibility is something you often only find in pricier models, so the wattage rating gives the 26409 a bit of an edge for its price point. On the flip side, the station's input voltage range is designed for standard North American outlets, which means you'll need a step-down transformer if you plan to use it overseas. That isn't a deal-breaker, but it's an extra piece of equipment you have to consider. Also, the lack of a digital display means you rely on feel and the temperature knob's markings, which can be a little vague if you need precise thermal profiles for sensitive components. For most hobby projects, that's acceptable, but if you're calibrating a board that requires exact temperatures, say, reflowing a BGA package, you might find the analog control limiting. Another real-world factor is the station's footprint. It sits comfortably on a typical workbench, taking up less space than a full-size soldering iron with a separate transformer. The cord is long enough to reach a power strip on the other side of the bench, and the tip holder stays warm enough after you shut the unit off to keep the tip clean, but not so hot that it becomes a burn hazard. I've set it up next to a small oscilloscope and a bin of components without it feeling cramped, which is a practical win for anyone with limited bench real estate. Who should buy this station? If you're a maker who regularly builds kits, repairs broken gadgets, or does occasional PCB work, the Weller 26409 offers a reliable heat source without the learning curve of a fully digital system. It's also a good entry point for students who need to practice soldering techniques before moving on to more specialized equipment. Conversely, if you're a full-time service technician who needs rapid tip recovery, programmable temperature curves, or a suite of interchangeable accessories like a hot air gun, you'll probably outgrow this unit quickly. The analog control and modest power envelope, while sufficient for many tasks, may feel restrictive once you start handling high-volume or high-precision jobs. A practical weakness that shows up after a few weeks of use is the tip life. Weller tips are known for durability, but the station doesn't feature an active tip cleaning system. You'll need to manually wipe the tip on a damp sponge after each session, and if you forget, oxidation can set in faster than with a station that has a built-in cleaning cycle. It's a small habit to develop, but worth noting if you're looking for a low-maintenance workflow. Overall, the value of the Weller 26409 comes